Hi everyone! In today's video I would like to share with you a couple of things I wish I knew before I started container gardening. If I knew all of this before, I would probably avoid many mistakes and also a lot of disappointment as well. So these are just some of the things I can think of, but it would be lovely if you could also share your own experience in the comment section. What are some of the things you wish you knew earlier on your gardening journey? Perhaps someone who's watching this video later can find all of these tips helpful. Okay, so I'm gonna start by saying that when I started container gardening, I already had some experience growing plants because I come from a gardening family, but I quickly realized that growing plants directly in the ground and growing them in containers is way different. And it's not necessarily that one is more difficult than the other, it's just a different way of growing plants. And for example, when you grow plants in pots, you may need to pay attention to completely different things, or you may struggle with completely different issues than if you were to grow the same plants directly in the ground, and vice versa. So I would say the first thing that I wish I knew before, and the first thing that makes a difference between growing plants directly in the ground and in containers, is that when we plant plants directly in the ground, the soil isolates the plant's roots. It protects them from heat in summer, and then it protects them from frost in winter. And also when you plant directly in the ground, it has all that space available to spread its roots in search for water and nutrients. Versus in containers, your plants only have that small amount of soil, or I should rather say a substrate, that the pot can hold. So first of all, it's gonna dry out quicker. So you will need to water your container grown plants more frequently. And the more frequently you water, the more the nutrients are being leached out and washed out of the soil. So you will need to fertilize your container grown plants more frequently than you would your in-ground grown plants. And then, as I said, garden soil isolates the plant's roots. And when you think about this, when we grow plants in pots, well, technically speaking, the root ball is sort of above the soil level in a way, right? And the only thing that protects the plant's roots is the thin wall of your container. So you may need to provide additional protection, especially during winter, from frost, to protect the roots of your plants, to prevent them from freezing. So all in all, as I said, it's not necessarily more difficult to grow plants in pots, or it's not easier to grow plants in pots. It's definitely gonna require more maintenance. It's different, but it's gonna require more maintenance when you grow plants in containers versus directly in the ground. Okay, number 2 and number 3 are kind of connected with one another. So first, I wish I knew a little bit better how different plant groups work. And that's something I spoke about in a recent video. I went through all the plant groups, what are the differences, and especially what is the difference between, for example, annual plants and frost tender perennials, because there's a whole lot of plants that people refer to as annuals, where in fact they are perennials. They just need some protection from frost. So I wish I knew that better, because I'm totally guilty of getting rid of perfectly healthy perennials at the end of the season just because I thought they were dead and they just simply went dormant. So if that's something you wish to learn a little bit more about, I will leave you the link to that video in the description box and at the end of this video so that you can watch it later. And another thing I speak about in that video are hardiness zones. That's also a really important thing that I wish I understood a little bit earlier on my gardening journey. Because before, I would listen to advices given to me by more experienced gardeners, and for example, they will tell me, oh, you need to protect that plant from frost. So I will go out on my balcony, I will end up wrapping in horticultural fleece or bubble wrap every single plant that I had. Or they will tell me, oh no, don't bother keeping that plant because it's not gonna survive winter, or that plant is annual. And I'm not saying their advices were not good, not at all. These were some really awesome advices, but these were advices that applied for their gardening zone, for their hardiness zone, not necessarily for mine. Because I, for example, garden in zone 8, so there's no point for me to protect plants that are, for example, hardy down to zone 4, 5, 6, or even 7, because I know that these plants can survive winter outside without any protection at all. And the same goes for plants that are frost tender. For example, I learned that I can actually overwinter geraniums, for example, outside with a little bit of protection, because geraniums can take light frost. So if I protect them, I can successfully overwinter geraniums outside in my climate. So if you know your zone, if you know the zone of your plants, This kind of gives you exactly the information you need to know which plants you can leave outside without any protection, which plants could benefit from some frost protection, and then which plants are way too tender to be left outside in your climate, and they need to be either brought indoors or treated as seasonal plants. All right, and number 4 is potting soil matters. This is a really important aspect of container gardening, the choice of your potting mix. This is even more important than the plants you choose, because potting mix or the substrate, it's literally the base of your garden. That's what's gonna anchor your plants in the pots. That's where your plants are gonna draw water and nutrients from. And that's also where all of those beneficial soil microorganisms live. All of those beneficial bacteria, beneficial fungi that protect your plants, that live in symbiosis with your plant. So the choice of potting mix is really important. But obviously when you enter a garden center and you see all of those different potting mixes for roses, for geraniums, for hydrangeas, for herbs, for Mediterranean plants, for this or for that, you wonder, do I really need a different potting mix for every different plant? Or is it just marketing? And it is marketing to a certain extent, but it's true that there are different potting mixes available, and you're not gonna plant your seeds, your trees, and let's say your blueberries all in the same potting mix, because it may work for one of those plants, but surely not gonna work for the 2 others. So in my container garden, I keep it simple, and there are 3 things that I use, and I think that anyone, no matter what plants you grow, you could totally just base on these 3 types of potting mix. So the first thing that I use is a multi-purpose potting mix with added perlite. This is the base of my garden. And I use Light Mix by Playground. This is something that I've been using for the past I don't know how many years, and I have not found a better one. So if you're on the lookout for a good quality multi-purpose potting mix, I would highly recommend Light Mix by Playground. And this is something that you can use for your seeds. You can start your seeds in multi-purpose potting mix. You can plant your annual flowers in it. You can plant your veggies in it. You can plant your herbs in it, perennial plants, even shrubs, even your house plants. So this is really the base, and this is something that you'll probably use most frequently. And then a second type of potting mix that I use is garden soil, actually. So you can plant your plants in pure garden soil, because this is gonna compact too easily, it's gonna be too heavy. But adding a little bit of garden soil can be actually really beneficial, because garden soil has incredible capacity of holding water and nutrients, because most potting mixes contain different types of peat or coconut coir or coconut fiber, and garden soil has completely different components, let's say. So it's better at holding water and nutrients. It's also heavier, so it's more suitable for those taller, larger, more mature plants like trees, shrubs, and climbers, because it provides more stability and protects them from falling over in the wind. So I usually mix multi-purpose potting mix with garden soil. I just buy bagged garden soil. There are already ready mixes available, like for example, John Innes number 3 is a very popular garden soil based substrate, but it's not available where I live, so I just buy bagged garden soil, mix it with multi-purpose potting mix. And then the third thing that I use is ericaceous soil. And this is a substrate that has low pH, because many plants need acidic soil because certain minerals are only available at low soil pH. So there's a whole bunch of plants that need low pH, like for example, rhododendrons, azaleas, camellias, blueberries, and generally plant from the Ericaceae family. They need low soil pH, because if you plant them in a traditional potting mix, after several months they are literally gonna exhaust themselves. They are gonna be deprived of nutrients, so at some point they are surely gonna die. So they need ericaceous soil. But if you don't have any plants from the Ericaceae family or don't have any acid-loving plants, then you can totally get away with just multi-purpose potting mix and garden soil. Okay, and finally number 5, and this is my favorite gardening quote: if something is not eating your plants, your garden is not part of the ecosystem. So let's normalize pests. Pests are part of the food chain. If we eliminate pests, we eliminate many beneficial insects and even some pollinators as well. So don't freak out when you see some aphids on your plants, and learn to also share your garden with all of those different creatures, embrace biodiversity, and heck, even plant some stuff just for those bad bugs. Stuff like nasturtiums that can act as host plants that will keep pests away from your actual ornamental plants. And you will see when you stop using pesticides and when you stop trying to kill every living thing in your garden, you will see you will have a much more healthy garden. So instead of using pesticides, try to learn a little bit more about beneficial insects like ladybirds, hoverflies, or lacewings, and what can you plant in your container garden to actually attract those insects to your garden. And you will see those little creatures will protect your garden far better than any pesticides, because pesticides are non-selective, so they kill the pest but also beneficial creatures. And who you think will come back first? The pest or the beneficial creatures? Well, surely pests, because for once they are produced way faster, and secondly, they don't care. They will always come back. They will always be after your plants. But the problem is, the more you use pesticide, the more those pests become resistant to that pesticide. And the more you use pesticide, the more beneficial creatures you kill. So at the end, you will have more and more pests. So instead of using pesticide, as I said, try to learn a little bit more about beneficial insects and natural predators, and how you can introduce them or how you can attract them to your garden so that they stay in your little container garden and protect your plants. Okay, so here are 5 things that I wish I knew sooner, but I'm happy to share them today with you, and hopefully they will help you on your container gardening journey. As I said, it would be lovely if you could also share some of your own ideas in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see each other in the next one.